And now we're joined by our guest, former Patriot. I'm going to call him linebacker, edge rusher, defensive end, hybrid guy, and that's Rob Ninkovich. And Rob, you're on with John Schmelk, Paul Dottino, and Lance Meadow on Giants.com. Hope you and your family, everybody's safe during these very turbulent times in our country.
Thank you. Same to you. I never thought that I'd be on Giants radio right now.
No, but you know what? The Giants have gone and gotten a lot of guys that were with the Patriots, so it makes sense. And you have a lot of experience with two of them, Patrick Graham and Joe Judge. But I'm going to start with a more generic question first, Rob, because Joe Judge has talked a lot about designing his schemes offensively and defensively every week based on the opponent, and it can look very different each week depending on who the opponent is. So as a player, how much for you defensively, scheme-wise, did things really change week to week?
Well, I mean, you have to change, or the other team is going to be able to watch the tape and understand what you're doing. So, the NFL, especially, every week is a challenge, and depending on the quarterback that you're playing, you can't be in the same thing every single week. So I think you have to change. You have to be different week to week. If you can do that and you have the players that are able to understand playing different scheme, I think that's what really can help you and make the difference when it comes to trying to, make a playoff push or win the division. I think it really comes down to the ability to change up, especially in the division, first game you play versus second game you play.
Hey, guys, I want to follow up real quick with Rob on that one because we had Jonathan Casillas, one of your former teammates, on, and I asked him this question. I want to ask it to you. To what extent do things change? Obviously, you can change tendencies. You can change, the pattern of calls and things like that. But are we talking about things as simple as fronts and gap responsibilities? Do things as basic as that change week to week too?
Yeah, I mean, if you can do that, some teams don't have the luxury of being able to go from a 43 to a 34 or 52 front, just depending on their personnel. If you have, 4-3 defensive ends that don't really know how to drop or they don't have any experience in coverage, then it's pretty tough to switch into a 34 and expect those guys to drop. So I think it comes down to personnel, how you – what guys and bodies you bring into the building that you've evaluated that can play different positions and different roles. I do know as a Patriot playing for the Patriots, there is a lot of value in being able to drop into coverage, rush the passer, stop the run, and stay on the field the whole time and do that. So if you can have guys that are able to stay on the field and you don't have to pull them off the field and put a guy out there that can drop, then that's another tendency that another team can't watch and see. Like, hey, if Ninkovich comes off the field, look out. Like, another guy's going to come in and only rush, So I think when you can have multiple packages with the same personnel, that's what's the most challenging for other teams.
Rob, when you were with the Patriots, you played with Fleming, Lewis, and Ebner, now all Giants. As John mentioned up top, it does seem like Patriots South these days here in East Rutherford. But let me just start by asking you about Joe Judge and about Patrick Graham, guys you know well. Even though the Belichick system and the Patriot system has been so incredibly successful, we all know that guys have to bring some individuality with them. They can't take a carbon copy of the Patriot system everywhere they go. From what you know about Judge and about Graham, what can they bring differently to help them succeed with the Giants?
Well, I think they have a tremendous work ethic, and I was with Pat a long time. Me and Pat are very close and good friends, and he helped me a lot in my career because he was so thorough in everything that he did in preparation. Same with Joe Judge. Joe Judge is going to be a guy that is the first in, last guy out. He'll probably sleep there 4 or 5 nights a week. I know that sounds crazy, but he's that into it. Same with Pat. Those guys, they're not going to leave any stone unturned when it comes to preparation. So I think that you can learn a lot from being with the Patriot organization, and you can learn the things that Bill is able to do and kind of how he approaches things, but then also have your own personal twist on coaching style and how you deal with players and how you deal with coaching. Everyone has their own way of doing things. You can't be Bill Belichick. It's just not going to happen. So I think the best thing that any coach or player that's been around Bill and learned from him is just taking all the things in and trying to absorb the key fundamentals that are taught to you when you're coached or playing under Bill Belichick, and you try to put those and install those same types of values into your new team, but yet still have your own individual style on, just coaching and relating to your players. Because at the end of the day, it's all about how do you get a group of men from all different age groups and backgrounds to come together for a common goal, and that comes down to just the way your consistency is with coaching, the way you consistently coach each guy. There's no favoritism. Look, as I can tell you this, I've seen Tom Brady get yelled at by Bill Belichick, and it doesn't matter if he's the greatest of all time. And I think that speaks volumes from as another player in that team. That look, nobody is safe here, and we're all going to be held accountable. So I think the accountability, Coach Graham and Joe Judge are going to hold guys accountable, which is very much so needed in the NFL. You have to be accountable. You have to be expected to play at a high level week in and week out, and there is no my bads. So I would anticipate moving forward that there isn't I'll get it next time or my bad, I messed up. It's no, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it right. We're going to walk through. We're going to make sure we practice hard, and all those little things help teams when things are tough, and an NFL season is tough.
Rob, if I can ask just a follow-up there, how much different is it to get guys to buy in when Belichick says it, because he's had the Hall of Fame career with all of the championship rings as a head coach, as compared to when one of his offspring, so to speak, from the coaching tree tried to do the same thing? I would imagine that the instant credibility that Belichick may have may not always translate to the assistants, or do you think that's the case?
No, it doesn't translate at all, and that's the thing that's the challenge. And, I mean, Bill Belichick in 2000 was in that same position, and he had to go out there and had to win football games and had to have a team buy in. But when that comes down to how you evaluate your talent, what type of personalities you bring into the locker room, so they can buy in. And guys like Nate Ebner, who have been with the Patriots, are going to be great examples of, look, this is how you just come into work every day, you put your head down and you grind, and you try and do everything you can to help the team, and you try and do the best that you can and hope that other guys around you want to follow that lead. And as a coach coming from another place where Bill Belichick, yes, when he walks in the room, he demands attention and demands respect, you would hope that the guys that you bring into that locker room and that setting, those are the types of guys that are gonna give you the respect and the attention that you want. And as a coach, look, the number one thing that you have to do is make sure that the guys in the locker room respect you and that you don't lose the team. And I think, look, I've been around Joe Judge a long time, and I think that he definitely has. I had a ton of respect for him, and he has the respect of the guys around him, just because of the fact that he knows football. He knows ball. He knows X's and O's. He knows offense, defense. He was on the special teams side of it for a long time. At Alabama, where we all know how great that program is, came to New England and really did a great job there. So I think that is the respect, the things that he has done working up to this point to get the opportunity to be a head coach. I think that is what guys are going to respect. And look, at the end of the day, if there's somebody that isn't giving the respect that you need to have right now in a building situation where you're trying to build a program, then maybe he's not the right guy. So that goes back to trying to find the right characters, the right personalities, the right guys that you want to build a winning team with.
Rob, as you noted, you've been with Joe Judge for quite some time, because not only did you contribute on defense, but you were a key special teamer, and Scott O'Brien was your special teams coordinator. Once Judge came in, he started off as the assistant and then worked his way up to the special teams coordinator. You spoke of how he was exposed to an entire roster, but what did you see out of him from a maturity standpoint and growth in a coach from an X's and O's standpoint as to how he really saw full potential in the entire roster and then showcase that across the board in his interaction with his players?
Well, I think a special teams coach especially has a unique ability to get the best out of each guy, because let's face it, special teams players in general aren't the superstars that are super paid on the roster. Those are the guys from, say 40 to 53 on the back end of the roster that are just trying to do their best so they can have an opportunity to show that they can play defense or play offense. And that's where I was at early in my career. I knew that I had to run down on kickoff, and I had to learn all the little things on being a good special teams player before I even had a chance to be on defense. That wasn't just going to happen for me. I had to earn my stripes running down on kickoff and doing all those little things that, it might not be the most glorious thing to be a guy, setting up a wedge, but there's no wedges anymore, but that's what I had to do. But just Joe Judge as a special teams coach, they have to really cram a lot of information in a very short amount of time. They don't have the hour group meetings with your position groups like you would if you're a D lineman or a linebacker. Special teams unit, usually after team meeting, they might have 20 minutes, to go over their kickoff return or their punt return. So you have to be very, very thorough in, number one, installing what you want to be installing to where everyone in that room understands what's going on. And then also making sure that when there's a substitution or a guy gets hurt or, a guy is not available, that the next guy is able to jump in and be there without having, an extra guy missing on. We've all seen, a guy on field goal that's missing and runs out to the field late, or there's somebody missing on punt team. And if you don't have a guard or a tackle on your punt unit, that's a big deal. That's how games are lost. So I think being so thorough, Joe Judge, in coaching, being efficient, getting everybody on the same page, that is really what he's excelled at. And not only has he done it in the pro level, but he did it in college, at the college level. So if you take, the two guys that he has coached under, Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, that resume speaks volumes. So I think that the ability for him to coach and get everybody on the same page, that is so valuable, and you learn that as a special teams coordinator because you don't have the time that maybe a D coordinator would have.
Rob, we're joined by Rob Ninkovich. He's also an analyst right now for ESPN. Make sure you check him out, former Patriots linebacker. You mentioned you're very tight and you're close with Patrick Graham, Rob. What is it about him, his personality, and just his intellect and the way he teaches that makes you believe he's going to be a very effective defensive coordinator?
Well, he's a great motivator. Me and Pat have definitely had our fair share of disagreements. He knows when I'd get angry or, he'd say, Rob, don't start with me, because he could kind of feel and get a sense for, me as a player and when I was a little bit frustrated. And I think that goes, a long way as a defensive coach when you can take a guy individually, figure out what gets them going to motivate, but also to support. I think there's plenty of times where I've been down and Pat's been able to bring me back to where I was feeling good about where I was at. Because, look, the NFL it's a very mentally draining league, and if you're not playing necessarily well, if it's week 4 and you only got a sack, you start thinking, oh man, can I not get to the quarterback? So these are all things that as a coach you kind of have to be a teacher, but then a mentor. And I think Pat, not only has he been a great teacher for me, he's been a great mentor in guiding me and helping me through the low times in a season. And there's always going to be a tough point. There's always going to be an injury that you're fighting through or something that is bothering you and you're not at your best. But, a really good coach, they're able to help you through those times and maximize your potential. So, me and Pat go way back. He does a great job of motivating guys. His pregame speeches are always motivating. Look, he gets fired up. He almost wants to put a pads on himself. So, I think that not only does he has a great motivating factor to him, but he's very smart. So he knows team. He understands defense. Hey, guys, sorry. Via, I'm on the phone. Stop screaming.
Hey,
And,
Rob, don't
you
worry
know,
about it. I have a 2.5-year-old that, thank goodness, is napping upstairs. I understand. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so I just think that his ability to teach, mentor, and the volume of defense and the things that he knows and understanding of defense and how to run a defense, I think he's going to have a good time in 2020 as a D coordinator.
You know, two words you just mentioned, Rob, that really hit home for me because we saw it in Joe Judge's introductory press conference with the Giants. You said teacher and you said mentor. Now, you referred to Patrick Graham with those words, but I also think, from what I can tell, those words also apply very strongly to Joe Judge. With a young team that the Giants have, one that is trying to resurrect itself, how critical are those particular traits, even more so than just being a bright football mind?
Oh, I think it's huge, especially with a young team. When you have if you don't have an experienced team where guys have played a lot of football, there's going to be moments in the season that you're going to need that support of your coaches to help you get through those tough times. So I think that the teaching side of things and the mentor side of stuff, that's huge with a young roster, and they're definitely going to have to do a great job of teaching different situations that come up. And that's the one thing I can speak on in the New England, my New England tenure, is just the ability to understand situations. Situational football is how teams win and lose. We've all seen a team mismanage 2 minutes before the end of the half. They don't kick a field goal, and they end up losing by 3 points. So it's just so crazy how situations that come up in the game really can affect the outcome if you're not ready and you're not already coached up on all the things that can happen. And I can guarantee that Joe Judge is going to have that team coached up, and they're going to be ready to go for all situations that might pop up, and it's all unexpected.
Rob, speaking of coaching up players in different scenarios, I think what's interesting during your tenure with New England's defense, you had seasons where you had a guy like Chandler Jones who would get you 10 or 11 sacks, and then you had other seasons where it was really piecemeal, and it was 4 or 5 of you that had 6 to 8 sacks. When you look at this Giants defense, it is a young secondary, and there's not necessarily a proven pass rusher. So in terms of what you experience in New England's defense and what Patrick Graham can apply to this unit, what do you attribute to why you guys had success when there may have not been that elite one particular pass rusher to rely on?
Well, I think it's not trying to stuff a square peg in a round hole. If you have to evaluate the guys on your roster and figure out what is going to be the best scheme and the best thing to run with the talent that you have on that team. Every year is different, and especially this first year, it's going to be a little bit difficult not having this OTA and mini camp time right now to evaluate where guys are at. I think that's going to be a disadvantage, unfortunately, to some of these newer coaching staffs. They don't have the time in with some of these players that other coaching staffs have had, especially if you're, a veteran coaching staff with a lot of veterans on your roster. So they're going to have to figure out, who are our best players. And look, if we have to stay in a 4-3 and we just have to on third down stick to a couple plays, then look, we'd rather be fast and aggressive than being slow and overanalyzing things. And when you have a lot of scheme, sometimes that slows players down. When you have older veteran players, you can put a lot on the plate, and you can understand and know, like, these guys will digest it. They're able to adjust on the fly. But when you have a young defense, maybe guys that haven't played a lot of different spots or a lot of different scheme, you might have to just make it simple for them. And sometimes that's not a bad thing. Look, think about the Giants in 2007 when they had their Super Bowl run against the Patriots. They had a good front. They were just big, strong, fast guys. Think about 2012 again. When they won another Super Bowl, they had a good front four that got after the quarterback. They didn't have a crazy amount of scheme. They just pinned their ears back and got after the quarterback, and that works too. So there's going to be somebody on that roster, I can guarantee it, that's going to emerge and be a pass rusher and get after the quarterback. Look, there's plenty of guys that can do it. They just haven't had the opportunity, and this is a great opportunity for somebody who's going to have to step up and make a name for himself, and that's all you can ask for as a football player. Just, hey, let me get on the field, let me make some plays.
Rob, speaking of stepping up, you have 3 Patriots former teammates between Fleming, Lewis, and Ebner who are now part of the Giants. All 3 of these guys have been signed as reserve free agents just coming into the unit. Which one of those guys do you think will have the biggest impact on this year's Giants team, and why?
Well, I think all those guys are great football players. I think that Nate is not only, is he a great person, a great football player, but he's a good leader. He's a great leader. And right now you need leadership. You need veteran leadership as a new coaching staff, trying to make some changes, trying to get your team to go in a different direction than they have been going, changing the culture. To change the culture, you need to have guys that are able to lead and do things by example, and they're not going to argue with you. They're not going to fight back. They're just going to do what they're asked to do, and they're going to do it well. So I think that Nate is probably one of the best additions to the roster, so guys can, he's an Olympic athlete. He was on the Olympic team for rugby, which is impressive to play on the Olympic team. It just speaks about, your work ethic and how dedicated you are. And, again, I think that he is going to be great for the morale and great for the coaching staff for that team.
Rob, before we let you go, 2 other players, Cameron Fleming and Dion Lewis, are also added who you've worked with, specifically Dion Lewis, somebody that has provided that change of pace aspect to the backfield. And from your days in the Patriots organization, you very well know they rotated running backs like crazy. How does a guy like a Dion Lewis find a way to balance things with Saquon Barkley and also carve out a role with a premier back?
I forgot about D-Lou. I'm not going to lie. Like, he's going to be a beast for you. Dion is like so quick, so fast, and he's got a chip on his shoulder all the time. So there's something about him. I don't know if it's because he's not so tall. He always wants to fight. He gets up wanting to fight. Like, he's always got energy. So I love D-Lou. I think he's going to be a great addition, especially with Barkley. That that 1-2 combo of having a every down back, and then you throw in Dion in third down situations or screens, 3rd and long. You have a back that can catch and run, who's shifty, who's quick, like a water bug. I mean, he's going to be able to move and shake guys. So, I just think that is a great addition to the Giants, having a guy like that, especially when you have Barkley on the other side of that.
Rob, final question. You mentioned specifically to the Giants, but I want to talk lead wide in general. You were around in 2011 when we had the lockout and the players didn't have a chance to do a spring program, but they could at least get together separately and work out together. They couldn't do that at all this year. So how is this league going to look in September when they've had 4 weeks of practice? Who knows? Maybe only 2 preseason games. Who knows how it's going to look? Just what do you think this league is going to look like, and what do you think some of the important factors are for teams that get off to a fast start?
Man, I think it's going to be definitely it's going to be different. I feel like you're going to see the guys who have been working hard, and you're going to see the guys that haven't been working hard. It's going to be clear. There might be some more injuries, which I hate to say, but if you're not conditioned to play football, if you haven't run and you haven't had the training that you should have to play football, then you might have some unfortunate soft tissue injuries or something that happens to you because you weren't ready to go play football. And, I can remember the lockout. That was the year that we made it to the Super Bowl. In that season, I felt like we were good because of the fact we had a good, hardworking team that in the lockout did the right things. They weren't just, sitting on their couch eating potato chips. They were running. They were running and doing all the right things. So you're going to have guys that haven't been running and haven't been doing everything they should be doing. They're going to try and get it done 2 weeks or a week before they have to go report, and it's not going to be enough. So on the flip side of that, I also feel like a young quarterback, like some of these teams that have a quarterback that hasn't started or hasn't seen a lot of time yet, they're going to be behind the 8 ball because they haven't had the reps under center. I think that's the number one position where you need to see and you need to look at different defensive looks that are shown to you on the field, not just on the like video or TV. You know, that can only get you so far. You have to be on the field. You got to see it live in color and react to it as you would if you were playing football, because you can't go out there and just say like, oh yeah, I know football without playing football. You got to play football. You got to take the reps. You got to have practice to be good. So you can do all the virtual stuff you want, but when the bullets are live, it's a lot different.
Rob, great stuff, my friend. We really appreciate it. Rob Ninkovich, analyst for ESPN, former Patriots linebackers. Get back to the toughest job in the world, my friend, watching little kids. God bless you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I got
Rob.
3 of them.
Thanks,
I got
Rob.
3 of them.
Appreciate it.
It's tough. Yeah, I might be coaching soon. We'll see.
Thank you, Rob.
Maybe I'll be with the Giants. I don't know. I got some good connections.